Good evening to all participants. Thank you really very much for being with us. And thanks, Paloma, and to the other organizers for inviting me to share with you the results of one survey that we have conducted with many of our colleagues and field veterinarians in many European countries in slaughter pigs last year. We know that scoring of lung lesions in slaughter pigs is the very important source of information about the quality, about the condition of respiratory health in swine herds. The advantage of it is that we can see what happened to many pigs during their life. We can see it in the slaughterhouse, and we can see it also on pigs which were clinically healthy. So even though we didn't see no disease in subclinically infected pigs, we may see the lesions in at the slaughterhouse. There are two typical infections which were described, which are inducing the lesions that stay until the slaughter time, although the clinical condition may be improved and the disease can disappear, but those lesions will stay until the slaughter time. And those infections are Mycoplasma pneumoniae and Actinobacillus pleuropneumoniae. And it was described several times, the type of the lesions, and also there are different methods how to assess those lesions. I believe many of you are already familiar with SIVA Lung program. It's the program which SIVA launched already a couple of years ago, and it's the program which is used to evaluate the respiratory health in swine herds. And one of the major part of it is the scoring methodology of those lesions. And using the specific software, we can collect this information, we can work with this information, with those data, and the evaluation of those data can be really a very useful and important fundamental element for driving the conclusions in terms of prevention, needs for the management changes, etc. And so in 2019, we performed the survey with the aim to collect and evaluate the results of lung scoring performed in, I would say, really most of the wine important countries in Europe. So the results were collected from 19 EU countries in the whole 12 months period from December 2018 till the end of November 19. SIVA Lung program scoring methodology was used to evaluate the presence and the impact, the extension of those infections, the importance of those infections of Mycoplasma and Actinobacillus pneumoniae. For those who are not familiar with CLP, SIVA Lung program consists of two basic methods. We are using modified MADEC scoring method for enzootic pneumonia-like lesions, and modified SPES method, previously described by Dorian and his colleagues, for scoring AP, like so Actinobacillus pneumoniae-like lesions. Very briefly to describe how does it look like. Here on the picture you see the scoring method for EP-like lesions. So we are using 4-score grid for minor lesions up to 25% of each lobe, or bigger lesions 26 up to 50%. That would be score 2. Then more extensive lesions, which consist of 50 up to 75% of the size of the lobe, and then the very extensive lesions, which go between 76 up to 100% of the lobe. We are using the weighted calculation of the lesions. That means we are considering the relative weight of each lobe. And finally, we can calculate, first of all, the overall prevalence. That means the percentage of lungs with some of the bronchopneumonia type of the lesions, so EP-like lesions. And then, based on this weighted calculation of the scores, we can come to the result describing the percentage of affected surface of the lungs, and then relative either to all scored lungs or specifically to lungs with the lesions. That means to the percentage of the lung area in those lungs which were sick. Besides that, we also scored the old lesions. I do not describe it here for the time reasons. That means the scars, and that's the indicator of the, let's say, very early Mycoplasma infections. For Actinobacillus pleuromonia-like lesions, we are using the identification of dorsocaudal pleurisy, which is very suggestive for previous AP infection. And here we are using the 3-grid score. So score 0, there are no lesions. Score 2, 3, or 4, depending on the tension of the lesions on either one diaphragmatic lobe or both diaphragmatic lobes. And so then we are calculating again the prevalence. That means the percentage of lungs with some of the dorsocaudal pleurisy. And together with the extension of the lesions, we count the API index, which tells us the final result, considering both prevalence and the severity, the extension of the lesions. All those information are collected, as I mentioned before, thanks to the special software. We can record them on the tablets. The system is available for both Apple and Android versions. And we can automatically immediately calculate the results. We can score the data, and the system also allows for communicating between different computers, different people, different organizations, for example. Now, so that was the very brief description about the types of the lesions and the way how do we evaluate them and work with them. Now let's go to the survey itself. So in 2019, we collected or we received anonymously with only the identification of the country. In total, more than 3,500 results of the scoring sessions. That means 3,500 batches of pigs, batches of lungs were assessed, and we received the results. Overall, it consisted of 425,000 lungs. So really a large pool of pigs, of lungs were scored, and we are working with really almost 500,000 items. Having the indicators that I mentioned before, we calculated the median values and quartiles for each of the indicators. That means for the prevalence, percentage of lungs with bronchopneumonia lesions, the percentage of affected lung parenchyma, that means the extension of the lesions, the percentage of scars, and for Actinobacillus, the prevalence again, the percentage of dorsocaudal pleurisy, and as I mentioned, the API index. Those indicators we collected from all those 19 countries, except France, where the system is already established with no scoring specifically for AP-like lesions. So those results, percentage of those local Krejci and API index, is not including French pigs. So let's go to the results. For EP-like lesions, the overall prevalence as the median value was 40.4%. So we can say that 40% of pigs in Europe, on average, including highly affected, medium affected, or very healthy herds, because considering the huge number of farms and batches, we really can say that it consisted of different types of farms in different countries. So overall, 40% of pigs had some of the bronchopneumonia types of lesions, so EP-like lesions. If we look at the quartiles, this 25 and 75% of the pig population had the prevalence about 20 to 60%. So about 20 to 60% of lungs had some EP-like lesions in roughly 50% of the pig population in Europe. In terms of the intensity of the infections, the extension of the lesions, about 5% of the total lung parenchyma was damaged, was affected still in the slaughter time of the pigs. We have found on average more than 7% of pigs with scars, which indicates, it's not relatively a high number, it indicates that the prevalence of those very old infections, which happened early in life of pigs, is relatively low. In terms of AP-like lesions, the overall prevalence was very close to 10%, which may seem low, but we also have to consider that many farms where Actinobacillus is eradicated, or they have those low virulence strains that died by Marcelo Gochal. So this is really the average value of all the farms which were scored independently on the presence or absence, independently on the serological positivity or negativity of the herd. So all the herds were included, as I mentioned, except those in France. The median API index is 0.42, which, again, considering that this very average value, may seem to be quite low. The interesting information for us was really what can we see as the evolution in time. In 2019, we had about 30% lungs less scored. So despite of this 20 or 30% increase of the number of lungs between those 2 years, we can see very stable results, which tells me that the method, the selection of the farm, which is quite random, the scoring method itself is really valuable, because despite of the different number of the batches for different number of lungs, we have very, very similar and very consistent results. At the same time, it tells us that despite some efforts in some countries to decrease the number of, for example, Actinobacillus positive farms, their overall results in Europe remain very stable. So we do not see really any significant improvement in the respiratory health of pigs. So still 40% of lungs independently on those 2 years were positive for EP-like lesions, and close to 10% were positive for AP-like lesions, so actinobacillus-like lesions. When we just made the comparison with the published data that were collected by the other group, so for example, that was the survey performed in Germany in 2017, published by Professor Matthias Edix. In his study on 50 selected farms in Germany, they have found 44% of lungs affected by EP-like lesions, which is very similar to our results from all the European countries. Also, the lungs with scars were relatively low, yet higher than in our survey. What we have seen quite high difference was in the prevalence of actinobacillus-like lesions. So probably this was due to the pre-selection of the farms, which were in percentage relatively more affected by actinobacillus than in our survey, which was done in all the European countries. The system also, till recently, allows to record the vaccinations protocol, the type of the vaccine which is used in some specific farm. And that is also a very good source of information which reflects how the preventive strategy really works and how is it efficient in terms of the reduction of the lesions in the slaughter pigs. And interestingly, from some countries where we collected a large number of results from different farms in which we had the record of the vaccine which was used, we can see the difference between the results in terms of the prevalence and severity of the lesions depending on the type of the vaccine which was used or no vaccine. So I will just very briefly share with you the results from Germany and Spain. So here we have the results from Germany and Austria, consisting of 20,000 lungs collected from more than 170 batches, and they were split depending on the type of the vaccine. So Hyogen was used in some of them, then single shot, different 3 types of MHIO vaccine, like single valent vaccine, and also some of the farms were using the combined MHIO and PCV2, 2 different vaccines, and some of the farms were not vaccinated. So here we see that Hyogen vaccinated pigs performed significantly better than any other type of the vaccine used or no vaccination. And also there was, in terms of the prevalence, and also that was not always significant difference, but in some cases also the significant difference in terms of the extension of the lesions. In Spain, our colleagues collected the results from starting from 2016 until end of October 19, and in total they evaluated 1,700 batches, consisting of in total 256,000 lungs from different farms all over Spain, and they had the record of the vaccines used, which was either Hyogen or 2-shot vaccines, single-shot vaccine, and also 2 vaccines combining both PCV and MHIO, and the statistical evaluation was performed. So similarly, we have seen the improvements in Hyogen vaccinated herds compared to any type of the vaccines or no vaccine which was used in, well, both prevalence and the extension of the lesions. And in terms of the prevalence, the results were statistically significant. So this is also a evidence that the lung scoring in slaughter pigs really tells us a very important information about the efficiency of the vaccination protocol which is used and the efficacy of the vaccine which is in the farm. So as a conclusion, I would say respiratory health remains really a important, not yet solved condition in EU countries. The prevalence of enzootic pneumonia and pleural pneumonia is still high, and it seems to remain stable. I would also conclude that lung scoring and using several lung program, it's very handy, easy manageable, and valuable tool to assess the respiratory health related to those two infections, Actinobacillus and Mycoplasma. The data are also available for making different comparisons between farms or countries, and we can do the benchmarking depending on the source of the results. And finally, we can use the results obtained from the lung scoring to assess the efficacy of different types of Mycoplasma vaccines, which we have seen in this study.